Alina had lived her whole life in a small mountain tribe where every person was expected to look, act, and think in one particular way. The tribe followed old beliefs that had been passed down for generations. People respected these rules so much that even questioning them was seen as dangerous. Children grew up learning that the tribe was everything, and anyone who was different was a sign of bad luck. From the time Alina could walk, she understood that she did not fit the tribe's idea of normal. She was taller than the other girls, and even taller than most of the boys. Her shoulders were wider, and her steps felt heavier. When she entered a room, she took up more space than the tribe believed a woman should. The elders whispered that her body was not blessed by their ancestors. They believed her size was a sign that she would bring misfortune. Even when she was still a child, people looked at her with uneasy eyes. Growing up, she tried her best to move quietly, to hide behind others, to sit in corners so she wouldn't be noticed. But her appearance always gave her away. During gatherings, the elders often stared at her instead of listening to the speeches. During meals, families would shift away from her. When she helped with chores, older women whispered behind her back. She heard them, even when she pretended not to. "She is too big for this tribe," they murmured. "She will attract trouble. She should have been born somewhere else." Alina never understood why her body mattered so much. She never harmed anyone, never caused problems, and never disobeyed rules. She worked harder than most people her age. She carried water from the stream, helped gather herbs, and assisted the women in preparing food for festivals. But no matter how much effort she put in, no matter how kind she tried to be, the tribe only saw her body, not her heart. When she turned 16, their attitude grew harsher. The tribe's crops failed one season, and people started blaming her. They said her presence upset the balance of nature. During a thunderstorm that damaged a few huts, people whispered that she had angered the spirits by simply waking up that morning. These were things she could not control. Yet she became responsible for all of them in the tribe's eyes. As the years passed, Alina stopped trying to win their approval. She still helped when she was asked, but she stopped forcing herself to smile in front of people who looked at her with fear or doubt. She silently hoped that one day people would see her for who she truly was. But that day never came. Then, a new problem arose. A group of children fell sick after eating wild berries. The berries had been collected by several young people, including Alina. Even though she had warned them not to take any fruit from near the forest's edge, they ignored her. When the children became sick, the parents immediately pointed fingers at her, saying she must have brought bad luck upon them. The elders gathered for a meeting. Alina wasn't invited, but she heard her name being spoken over and over through the thin walls of the meeting hall. Their voices were sharp and angry. They didn't want an explanation from her, or even the truth. They only wanted someone to blame because blaming her was easier than accepting their own mistakes. That night, a group of elders came to her small hut. Alina was sitting on her wooden bed, preparing to sleep. When she heard the knock, she opened the door, and their serious faces told her everything before they even spoke. They said she must leave the tribe's land by sunrise. They claimed it was necessary for the tribe's safety. They said no one wished her harm, but her presence was too dangerous for them. Alina felt a strong pain in her chest, not because she feared being alone, but because she had spent her entire life here. Even if people treated her unfairly, this was the place she knew: the mountains, the river, the fields where she learned to walk. Being cast out meant leaving behind everything familiar. She tried to ask why, but her voice broke. The elders did not respond with kindness. They simply stated their decision and walked away. She spent the rest of the night packing the few things she owned. She had a small cloth bag containing a blanket, a piece of fruit, and a tiny wooden carving her mother made before she passed away. That carving was the only thing that ever made her feel truly loved. She placed it carefully in her bag and stepped outside her hut for the last time. Before leaving, she stood and looked at the tribe's huts one more time. She hoped someone, anyone, would come out to say goodbye. But the village was silent. Doors remained closed. No footsteps, no whispers, no sign that she had ever mattered to them. She swallowed her tears, took a deep breath, and began walking down the narrow path that led out of the valley. The journey was harder than she expected. She had no real destination. The mountains were cold, and the ground was uneven. Every step felt heavy. But she kept moving. She walked for hours until the sun rose, painting the sky with orange light. The beauty of the morning didn't comfort her. Her heart felt empty, and her future felt uncertain. After 2 days of walking with almost no food, her body grew weak. She slept under trees, warmed herself with dry leaves, and drank from streams. Her feet were swollen, and her legs trembled with every step. But she refused to stop. She kept telling herself that somewhere beyond these hills, there must be a place where she could exist without fear or judgment. On the 3rd day, she found herself in a vast, open land. There were no mountains around, only rolling fields stretching far into the distance. She had never seen such an open space. The air felt different, lighter, almost welcoming, but she was too exhausted to appreciate it. Her legs finally gave up. She stumbled and fell near a wooden fence. She tried to stand again but couldn't. Her vision blurred, and her heartbeat slowed. The world around her faded as she lay there, too tired to move. Before darkness swallowed her completely, she thought she heard the sound of footsteps on dry grass. She tried to lift her head but failed. The last thing she saw was a shadow leaning toward her. And then everything turned silent and dark. She didn't know yet that this moment falling near that fence would change her life forever. She didn't know that the rancher who found her would see her not as a burden but as a human being deserving of care. She didn't know that her journey of pain was slowly turning into a journey toward strength, safety, and respect. All she knew for now was darkness. But beyond that darkness, a new beginning was waiting for her. The morning air on the ranch was cool and calm. Ethan, the rancher, woke up before sunrise as he always did. His routine had never changed in years. He fed the animals, checked the water tanks, and walked across the fields to make sure the fences were strong enough to keep the cattle safe. He enjoyed the quiet moments of early morning, when the world felt peaceful and still. The rustling of grass, the soft sounds of cows, and the gentle wind made the ranch feel alive in its own way. On this particular morning, as he walked along the long wooden fence that stretched across the far end of his land, something unusual caught his attention. At first, he thought it was just a bundle of old cloth someone had thrown there, but as he moved closer, his steps slowed. He realized it wasn't cloth at all. It was a person lying on the ground. Ethan frowned and hurried toward the still figure. When he reached her, he knelt beside her and gently turned her onto her back. He was shocked to see the face of a young woman, pale, tired, and clearly suffering. Her clothes were worn out, her hair tangled, and her hands bruised. She looked like she had been wandering for days with no rest. Ethan touched her forehead and felt how cold her skin was. She was breathing, but very weakly. Without wasting a moment, he lifted her carefully into his arms. She was taller and heavier than most women he had met, but he carried her with steady strength. He took slow steps to avoid hurting her, and soon reached his small farmhouse. He pushed the door open with his shoulder and laid her gently on the long sofa near the fireplace. He quickly lit a fire to warm the room. The flames crackled softly, filling the air with heat. Ethan then fetched a bowl of warm water, a cloth, and some simple medicine he kept for emergencies. He cleaned the dirt from her face and hands, noticing small cuts and bruises. She must have walked a long distance, he guessed. He wondered where she had come from and why she was alone. After tending to her wounds, he heated some soup on the stove. The smell of vegetables filled the room, mixing with the warmth of the fire. He placed a blanket over her and sat on a nearby chair, watching her breathe slowly. Ethan wasn't someone who liked to interfere in other people's lives, but he also couldn't leave someone helpless on his land. It wasn't in his nature to ignore suffering. After some hours, the woman's fingers moved slightly. Ethan leaned forward. She slowly opened her eyes, blinking at the unfamiliar room around her. For a moment, she looked frightened, as if unsure where she was or what had happened. "You're safe," Ethan said in a calm voice. "You were lying near my fence. I brought you here so you could rest." The woman stared at him, confused and tired. She tried to sit up, but her body was too weak. Ethan gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't force yourself," he said softly. "You need to regain your strength first. You're not in danger." The kindness in his voice surprised her. Alina had spent most of her life being judged or feared, so hearing someone speak so gently felt strange. She wasn't used to compassion from strangers, but something in Ethan's calm eyes made her believe he meant no harm. She swallowed and tried to speak, but her throat was dry. Ethan noticed and handed her a cup of warm water. She drank it slowly, feeling it ease the tightness in her chest. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. There was a long pause before she whispered, "Alina." "Well, Alina," he said with a small nod. "You can stay here until you recover. I don't know where you came from, but it's clear you've been through a lot." She lowered her eyes, unsure how to respond. She didn't want to tell her whole story yet. Not because she wanted to hide anything, but because it still hurt too much to remember. Ethan didn't pressure her. He simply stood and placed the bowl of warm soup on a small table near her. "You should eat when you can," he said. "It'll help." Then he stepped back and gave her space. Alina watched him move around the house with quiet confidence. She noticed how simple yet peaceful the farmhouse was. Wooden furniture, old photographs on the wall, and windows that let sunlight pour into the room. It felt safe, something she hadn't felt in a long time. As the day went on, Alina rested, drifting in and out of sleep. Each time she opened her eyes, she saw Ethan either working around the house or stepping outside to tend to the animals. He didn't hover over her or ask too many questions. His presence was steady and respectful. By late afternoon, Alina felt a little stronger. She sat up slowly, holding the blanket around her. The fire had warmed the room nicely. Ethan walked in, carrying a bucket of fresh milk. "You're awake," he said with a gentle smile. "Feeling better?" She nodded slightly. "A little. That's good," he replied. "You should rest more. But if you want, you can tell me how you ended up here. Only if you feel comfortable." Thanks for watching. 1. Thanks for watching. And remember, only if you feel comfortable. You can tell me how you ended up here. Alina looked down at her hands. She could feel her heart beating faster. She wasn't ready to share everything. Not yet. But she didn't want to be rude. So she gave him a small part of the truth. "I was sent away from my people." Ethan didn't ask why. He simply nodded and said, "I'm sorry you had to go through that." The calm understanding in his voice surprised her again. She had expected disbelief or judgment, but Ethan reacted with simple empathy. That alone eased something inside her. Ethan walked to the kitchen and began preparing dinner. Alina watched him move from shelf to stove, noticing how patiently he worked. His routine seemed to bring him peace. She admired that. After a while, Ethan returned with another bowl of food and placed it beside her. This time it was warm bread and a mix of vegetables. Alina ate slowly, feeling strength return to her body. She didn't remember the last time she had eaten a proper meal. As night fell, Ethan lit a small lamp and showed her the guest room where she could sleep. It was a simple room with a soft bed, a small wooden table, and a window overlooking the fields. Alina stood at the doorway for a moment, overwhelmed. Nobody had ever given her such kindness. "You can stay here as long as you need," Ethan said. "There's no rush." Alina wanted to say thank you, but the words felt too small for what she felt. Instead, she nodded, and Ethan understood. For the first time in days, she slept in a warm bed. And for the first time in her entire life, she slept in a place where nobody looked at her with fear or blame. The next morning, sunlight filled the room. Alina woke slowly, feeling stronger. She walked to the window and looked out at the wide fields stretching across the land. Cattle moved lazily in the distance. Birds circled the sky. Everything felt open and free, nothing like her old home where every movement was watched and judged. When she stepped into the living room, she found Ethan preparing breakfast. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning," he said. "If you're feeling well, You're welcome to join me. Alina sat at the table. The warmth of the food and the quiet energy of the house made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Over the next few days, she grew stronger. She still kept her past mostly to herself, sharing only small details. But Ethan never pushed for more. He simply helped her recover, offering comfort without demanding anything in return. As she began to feel better, she watched him work on the ranch. Something in her heart whispered that she was entering a new chapter of life. One where she wasn't judged, one where she could begin again. She didn't know what the future would bring. But for the first time, she felt hopeful. For the first time, she felt seen. And all of it began because a rancher stopped, noticed her lying on the ground, and did something kind, something simple. But for her, life-changing. Alina's strength slowly returned, and within 2 weeks, she was able to walk around the ranch without feeling weak. The open fields, fresh air, and gentle routine made her feel lighter inside. The ranch was quiet most of the time, with only the sound of the wind passing through the tall grass, the soft mooing of cattle, and the distant chirping of birds. It felt like a world far away from the place where she had grown up. Every morning, Ethan woke up early to begin his work. At first, he didn't let Alina do anything except take care of herself. But Alina couldn't sit still for long. She had lived her whole life working, fetching water, gathering food, and helping with tasks, so doing nothing made her uncomfortable. One morning, she quietly followed Ethan outside to see what he did each day. He smiled when he noticed her. "You should rest," he said kindly. "I feel better now," she replied. "Let me help. I don't want to be a burden." "You're not a burden," Ethan said firmly. "But if helping makes you feel better, then we can start with something simple." He handed her a small bundle of hay. "Let's feed the horses." Alina nodded. She walked behind him toward the stable. The horses inside lifted their heads, ears flicking forward as she approached. She placed the hay into the wooden trough. One of the horses stepped closer and nuzzled her arm. Alina smiled, surprised by the gentle gesture. "They like you," Ethan said from behind her. Animals know when someone has a kind heart. Alina wasn't used to compliments, so she didn't know how to respond. She simply focused on the horse, gently stroking its mane. Over the next few days, Ethan taught her more tasks: how to carry hay bales, how to check the fences for loose nails, how to refill the water tanks, and how to guide cattle from one field to another. The work was tiring, but it made Alina feel strong and useful. Her body, the same body her tribe had called a curse, finally felt helpful instead of unwanted. One evening, after a long day of repairing a broken gate, Alina sat on the porch as the sky turned pink. Ethan joined her with 2 cups of warm tea. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun slowly disappear behind the hills. "You work hard," Ethan said, handing her a cup. Alina looked down into the tea. "I've always worked hard," she replied softly. "But back home, no matter how much I worked, nobody appreciated it." "You deserve appreciation," Ethan said. "You deserve respect." Alina felt something warm grow in her heart. She never expected anyone to speak to her like this. She wasn't ready to tell him everything yet, but she felt safe around him, safe in a way she had never felt before. As weeks passed, Alina became a part of the ranch. Ethan didn't treat her like a guest anymore, but like someone who belonged there. He trusted her with important tasks. He discussed his daily plans with her. Sometimes, they ate meals together in comfortable silence. Other times, Ethan told her stories about the ranch, how he built it, the challenges he faced, and the memories he had of his parents who owned the land before him. But life outside the ranch was not as quiet. One afternoon, as Alina carried tools to the barn, she noticed a few strangers standing near the fence. They were whispering and pointing toward her. She felt a shiver run through her body. She wasn't used to being watched by people she didn't know. She decided to ignore them and walked back to the house. Later that day, Ethan returned from the nearby town looking troubled. Alina noticed his serious expression. "Is something wrong?" she asked. Ethan hesitated for a moment. "People in town are talking," he said finally. "They're curious about you. Some are spreading rumors." Alina felt her stomach tighten. What kind of rumors? Nothing true, Ethan replied. But people fear what they don't understand. They've seen you working here, and some are saying strange things. Alina lowered her gaze. It's happening again, she whispered. Just like before. Ethan shook his head. This is different. These are only rumors. People don't know you. They don't know your heart, your strength, or your story. But they're already judging me, Alina said. Let them talk, Ethan replied gently. I don't judge you. And this is my land. You're safe here. His words comforted her. But fear still lingered inside her. She had lived too many years being blamed, judged, and misunderstood. Even though the ranch felt safe, the world outside still felt threatening. A few days later, her fears became real. A group of men from the town arrived at the ranch. They drove up in a truck and stopped near the gate. Their expressions were serious and unwelcoming. Ethan stepped out of the house when he heard the noise. What do you need? Ethan asked calmly. We came to talk, one of the men said, his voice steady but cold. His eyes shifted toward Alina, who stood behind Ethan, half hiding. Who is she? Another man asked. We've seen her around. People are saying she's dangerous. Ethan's jaw tightened. She is not dangerous, he said firmly. She's a hard-working woman who needed help. Help? The man repeated with disbelief. No one knows where she's from. No family. No history. We can't allow someone like her to stay here. Alina felt her heart drop. She had heard those words before, almost the same words her tribe used when they pushed her away. She wanted to hide. But she stood still. She didn't want to run anymore. Ethan stepped in front of her, blocking their view. This is my land, he said, and she stays. The men exchanged angry looks. You're making a mistake, one of them warned. People in town will not be happy about this. I don't run my ranch based on what others think, Ethan replied. Alina has done nothing wrong. She deserves peace, like anyone else. The men turned and walked back to their truck. Before leaving, one of them looked at Alina with suspicion. We're watching, he said. When they drove off, Alina felt her knees weaken. She sank onto the porch steps. Ethan sat beside her. I'm sorry, she whispered. Because of me. You're having trouble. Ethan shook his head. Trouble comes and goes, he said. People talk. But talking doesn't make them right. But they won't stop, Alina said. They never stop. Ethan looked at her with calm certainty. I won't let them harm you. You're not alone anymore. Alina stared at him, feeling a mixture of fear and relief. No one had ever stood up for her like this. No one had ever protected her without expecting something in return. Over the next week, things became tense. More people began visiting the ranch, pretending to buy eggs or milk but really trying to see Alina. Some whispered rude comments under their breath. Others spread new rumors in town. Alina felt anxiety growing inside her, but she kept working, trying to stay quiet and strong. Ethan never left her side. Whenever someone approached the ranch, he stood beside her. He reminded her again and again that she was safe with him, but the pressure from the town didn't stop. One evening, the same group of men returned, this time angrier than before. We warned you, one of them shouted. You can't keep her here. Ethan stepped forward calmly. She is not going anywhere. Then we'll make sure the law gets involved, another man said. Ethan's eyes sharpened. Then I'll take action you don't expect, he said. The men didn't understand what he meant, so they only muttered threats and walked away. Alina looked at Ethan, confused. What action? She asked. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He looked at the horizon, thinking, I'll protect you, he said softly. No matter what it takes. Alina didn't know what he was planning, but she trusted him. She felt safe with him even when the world outside seemed ready to turn against her again. She didn't know that Ethan was already thinking about a powerful step, something bold, something unexpected, something that would change her life once more. Her old tribe had rejected her. The town doubted her. But Ethan believed in her. And in the days ahead, He would prove it in a way no one saw coming. The days after the men's second visit felt heavy. Alina tried to focus on her responsibilities, but the fear in her heart kept growing. Every time she heard a truck pass near the ranch, her body tensed up. Every time, strangers appeared in the distance. She wondered if they had come for her again. Ethan noticed her worry even when she tried to hide it. He worked quietly beside her, offering comfort through his presence. He didn't push her to talk, but he also didn't pretend everything was normal. He was always alert, always watching the road, always aware of who came near the ranch. One evening, after a long day of fixing fences, they sat outside on the porch. The sky above them slowly shifted from orange to purple. A cool breeze passed gently through the fields. Alina held a warm cup of tea in both hands, trying to calm her thoughts. "Ethan," she said softly, "you don't have to do this. Protecting me is causing problems for you." He looked at her steadily. "You were cast out of your home for a reason that wasn't your fault. I won't let that happen again here. But people in town already dislike me," she whispered. "They think I'm strange. They don't even know me." "Strangers judge what they don't understand," Ethan replied. "But I understand you. I see your strength." Alina lowered her eyes. She had never heard someone speak about her in such a respectful way. She didn't feel strong. She felt tired, frightened, and unsure of her place in the world. "What if they force you to send me away?" she asked quietly. Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "They won't," he said. "I've made my decision." "What decision?" she asked, confused. Ethan turned to her. His voice became calm and steady. "I'm going to make you part of this ranch officially. I'm going to make sure no one can question your place here." Alina frowned slightly, not understanding. "How?" He looked at her with a gentle seriousness. "If they try to argue, they'll have no right. Because I'll stand with you, not as someone you're helping, not as a stranger taking care of you, but as someone who considers you family." The words struck her deeply. She wasn't used to being wanted. She wasn't used to someone choosing her, defending her, or calling her worth protecting. "What do you mean by family?" she whispered. "I mean," Ethan said, "that you deserve a home, and this ranch can be your home, as long as you want it." Alina stared at him, stunned. The idea felt too big, too impossible. A home, a place where she belonged, a place where no one would push her out, a place where she could grow, live, and be herself freely. "You don't know my whole story," she said weakly. "I don't need every detail," Ethan replied. "I've seen who you are here. I've seen your kindness, your hard work, your patience. You are brave, Alina, and you deserve to stay." Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. She quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. "You don't have to thank me," Ethan said softly. "I'm not thanking you," she replied with a trembling smile. "I'm surprised." Ethan chuckled softly, and the air around them grew lighter. The next morning, Ethan left early for town. Alina stayed behind, cleaning the barn and checking the horses. She tried to distract herself, but she wondered what Ethan was doing. Hours passed before he returned. When she saw him step out of the truck, she noticed he was holding a small folder. He approached her calmly. "I talked to some officials," he said, "and I did what I needed to do." Alina felt a nervous flutter in her stomach. "What did you do?" Ethan handed her the folder. She opened it slowly. Inside were documents, a work agreement, identification papers, and a letter stating she was now legally connected to the ranch as a resident and partner in its care. Alina looked up, shocked. "What does this mean?" "It means no one can question why you're here," Ethan said gently. "It means you're protected. It means this ranch is your home too." Alina felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had never owned anything in her life. She had never had a place where she felt wanted. And now, in her hands, she held proof that she belonged somewhere. "Ethan, why would you do this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Because everyone deserves a safe place," Ethan said, "and because you've earned your place here." You've worked hard, you've supported this ranch, and you've brought a calmness I didn't even know I needed." Alina stood there silently, overcome with emotion. Words felt too small for what she felt inside. She had been thrown out of her tribe with nothing. She had walked through mountains with pain in her body and fear in her heart. She had fallen near a fence, close to giving up. And now, she was standing in a place where she was protected and valued. But the story didn't end there. When news spread in town that Ethan had legally made Alina part of the ranch, some people became angry. A few visited the ranch again, demanding answers. But this time, Ethan didn't argue or explain. He simply showed them the documents. "This is my decision," he said firmly. "And it's final." The men exchanged uneasy glances, realizing they had no power over him. "So she stays?" one of them asked. "She stays," Ethan replied. They left reluctantly, and after that day, they never returned. Some people continued to whisper, but none of them came to the ranch again. The noise around Alina's presence slowly faded. The town moved on to other topics, other rumors, other concerns. Life at the ranch returned to normal. With each passing week, Alina felt herself grow stronger. Not just physically, but emotionally. She wasn't scared anymore. She wasn't lonely. She wasn't watching her back every moment. She knew Ethan stood with her, not out of obligation, but out of genuine belief in her worth. One afternoon, while repairing a fence together, Ethan glanced at her with a warm expression. "You're different now," he said. "More confident." Alina smiled faintly. "It feels different," she admitted. "For the first time in my life, I feel safe." Ethan nodded. "You deserve that feeling." They continued working in comfortable silence, the sun warming their backs. Later that evening, as they sat together on the porch, Alina looked at the open fields stretching endlessly before them. She breathed deeply, feeling peace settle inside her. "I never thought I would find a place like this," she said quietly. "A place where I'm not judged for how I look. A place where I'm not blamed." Ethan took a slow sip of his tea. "Sometimes, life takes us through painful paths, so we can reach the place meant for us." Alina looked at him, grateful. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." "You don't have to thank me," Ethan replied with a gentle smile. "This is your home now, Alina. You belong here." Those words stayed in her heart. They were soft, simple, but powerful. They were words she had needed her whole life. And as the stars began to fill the sky, Alina finally understood something. Being cast out of her tribe wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning. Because losing that place led her to a new home, one built not on fear or judgment, but on kindness, respect, and understanding. For the first time, she didn't just live somewhere, she truly belonged.